Welcome back to another episode of Two Marine Dads, where we talk about the journey of life, politics, kids, and family, as seen from the perspective of two United States Marines.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are. Welcome back to Two Marine Dads podcast, episode number 19. 19 times, and hopefully this is probably the best one yet, with audio and lighting and all sorts of good stuff for all of you wonderful people listening out there. We hope it's reaching you properly and you're enjoying the content. Today, we're going to be fully triggered, pun intended, talking about the executive orders that are supposedly coming down the pipe from President Biden. He gave a pretty slow speech with lots of words that were meaningless, and pretty much he lied through most of the whole thing.
Yeah, he did.
And we thought we'd dive into that a little bit and not just go that, call Joe Biden a big stinky head and, neener boob, but actually give you guys some facts and some stuff about this to understand why the proposals they're coming up with don't make any sense and are bad for the country, bad for individual rights, and really show you where people like him see the world, their worldview with what government is versus what America's government is. Right. There's not a belief system here on what you think government is.
It's written down.
It's our government is one thing. If you think it's something different, you have to change the government. So it's not really an argument, more so as it is as who's trying to take control, I guess.
Right. I mean, we did a little bit of homework on this, and one of the things that came up was, I went to what was it, Constitution.org or something like this, and it says, while we're a nation, while many nations are based on shared language and ethnic heritage, Americans have made rights the foundation of their national identity. So, we don't have a national language, we don't have a national religion, we don't have. Everybody here's not German, you know what I mean, or English or French or something. We are
huge difference between Europeans.
Huge difference between Europeans. We are our own people. We're our own nation of many. E pluribus unum, right? Out of many comes one nation.
United States.
The United States, right? So when you look at it in terms like that, our founding fathers made it, quite clear, what our Bill of Rights are, and a lot of guys don't even understand what a Bill of Rights is, what the Bill of Rights are. And all that is, when someone says the Bill of Rights, they're just talking about the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. So,
and what's important about that is that many people mistakenly believe that the rights are given by the fact that they were written down. That your rights come from the Bill of Rights. That's not how it works at all. The Bill of Rights was right. It was how you got all the states to come together, right? And it was basically, here's how we guarantee the federal government can't do certain things. And so the most important rights got very specifically enumerated, but your rights don't end there, and they don't come from there.
No. The Constitution, you have a concept called a positive right and a negative right. And a positive right is something like what you routinely hear on the left, is where the government's going to give you something. Healthcare or housing, jobs, whatever.
You have the right to school.
Yeah, the government does not do any of that. We have in our Bill of Rights, on our Constitution is founded on this, and our Bill of Rights, all of them, all the amendments rather, are a negative right. They tell the government what they cannot do versus what they can do. So they cannot, in this case here where we were talking about gun control, they cannot infringe on your right to bear arms. It has nothing to do with hunting. It has nothing to do with self-defense or anything like this. This is a well-regulated militia that, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
And
period.
The Constitution is also positive rights for the government as well. It's not just it very distinctly limits what the government is allowed to do. It says it cannot do this. But it also very specifically states what the government can do. And in court case after court case, this comes down to a big deal with how these cases are decided, is the government can't do anything that is not specifically enumerated in the Constitution. Correct. It is the rule book. If it falls outside of this, the government needs to either create laws or they can't do it. And then this is where you get into the negative rights. The government can't create laws under any circumstances that can contradict the very specific rights, the right to the right to free speech, the right to religion, the right to protect yourself. And that's what the Second Amendment is. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting. It has nothing to do with target shooting. The Second Amendment is your ability to defend yourself from anything, including a tyrannical government.
Right. Being necessary to the security of a free state. That's what it's talking about. It's not talking about your right to go take out Bambi and make some backstrips. Like you're talking about from a tyrannical government, specifically from a tyrannical government. And the other thing too, I kind of want to make clear to guys out there. You hear this misspoken.
Guys and gals.
We don't
have any non-binary.
According to our analytics, we have no non-binary. Now, I don't know why our message isn't reaching the non-binary community, but if you guys have any suggestions, we can work on that.
No, we won't.
No, we won't. But we don't live in a democracy. We live in a representative republic, and you will hear politicians make this mistake, or on purpose, I think, all the time when they talk about the masses. Well, we don't live in a democracy because that is tyranny in and of itself.
A democracy can vote the rights away of an individual, and
right.
often do much more quickly than any kind of totalitarian state.
Oh yeah, we voted on it, therefore it's got to be good. So if enough people get together and say, hey, I want you to pay my mortgage, hint, hint, Obama.
What's that saying? That the wants of the many or the desires of the many do not outweigh the rights of the few?
Correct. And that works for everybody, and that's why it works. We are not a democracy. We are a representative republic. So whenever you hear someone say, this is our democracy,
a constitutional republic.
A constitutional republic, right.
So this is this speech from Biden, his attempt to go at these gun laws, if you will, his anti-Second Amendment diatribe is important more than just, it's very important for the Second Amendment. I'm not minimizing what the Second Amendment impact is here. But on a broader scale, it shows you where these people view government, where they view the importance of themselves, and what control they should have over your lives. These kind of people, and you hear the trope all the time, these guys, they want to take guns away from you, but they want to be covered by armed guards. And it's true.
It's absolutely true.
But that argument doesn't sway people's opinions. Nobody cares about that. Well, they're politicians. They're more targets, blah, blah, blah. The more important thing is that these people want you to live by sets of rules that they themselves don't want to live by. And this is exemplified in what's going on right now.
Through this whole speech, he spends the first 10 minutes, and it's very interesting, that he spends 10 minutes building on emotion. He packs the audience with members of shootings.
Gabby Giffords, family members of dead people, and far
leftists, and he spends time talking about emotion after emotion after emotion. And what those guys went through is tragic. I'm not trying to berate that at all or belittle that in any way. But that isn't what I'm looking for from my leader. I'm looking for
the last thing you want to do is make laws based on emotion.
On emotion, right? Yeah, you don't go shopping when you're hungry, and
especially
you don't base laws on emotion.
Rights. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the first words out of his mouth when he actually starts talking, about something concrete is, "No amendment to the Constitution is absolute." Now, I don't know about you guys at home, but when I heard this, like the needle literally in my head went, Zzz, what?
It's like a car crash.
Yeah, it was like, what the hell did he just say? No amendment to the Constitution is absolute. And what he says, his point to back that up is you can't back into, you can't walk into a, what did he say?
Theater,
you can't yell crow. Oh, I mean, wait. I'm quoting him direct.
You did quote him direct.
You can't yell crow. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Yes, you can. You can do that. But if somebody gets trampled and, God forbid, hurt or killed or something like that,
you're held responsible.
You will go to prison. Yeah, you will be tried and convicted for creating that mayhem. But you absolutely can. In the United States, you have freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want, however you want. Sometimes there's consequences to your speech. In other countries, like right now in Germany, you do not have freedom of speech. You can't even say
not even in Canada. In Canada, United Kingdom, they throw journalists in jail for writing bad stuff about a religion.
Right. So
not Christianity, but a religion.
But here we like to think we have freedom of speech about everything, and we do. That's why it was the first one they wrote down, for crying out loud. So he's wrong on that when he says, you can't do this. And then he segues into, you can't, our founding fathers wouldn't allow everyone to have any weapon they wanted.
There was people restricted from having firearms, and you couldn't own any weapon you wanted. And It's like,
yes, you could.
And this gets into that whole argument you'll hear a lot of people make, right? The Second Amendment was written for muskets and, powder loaded, hand loaded, one shot things. And it's like, you're completely missing the point. Those were the weapons of the day. You had just as much power with one of those as today you would with an automatic weapon.
Well, they want to outlaw, like on the previous, we talked about this last on what, a 2 or 3 podcasts ago, but they want to outlaw 50 caliber ammunition. Well, guess what? 50 cals were like the standard for a musket.
That's a musket round.
Yeah, that is a musket round.
And for the point I'm getting at, John, is more of the thing is the very point is they wanted people to be able to have the same weapons as everybody else.
Right.
I mean, for Christ's sake, the country was founded on private citizens arming the government.
Right.
The private weapons. I mean, most naval vessels that were merchant vessels, not Navy, not like Navy in the aspect of the the
like
U.S.
armed
Navy,
conflict,
like naval vessels,
warships.
anything that went on the water and it was a merchant ship usually carried more guns than anything the U.S. Navy warships had because they had to protect themselves. Most of the armed
pirates.
conflict that happened at the later end, leading, after the great naval battles between Britain and France like that, most conflicts happened with privateers.
Mm-hmm. And they were encouraged.
And a privateer is literally a private vessel owned by an individual or a corporation that gets a permission from a government to go hunt other governments' ships.
Right.
They're a person. Right. And they would go and they get to keep whatever they steal and blah, blah, blah. It was all merchant ships. But if you were a citizen in the Revolutionary period, you could have a fucking cannon.
Yeah. In the idea, like later on, you could go buy dynamite. You could buy explosives at the hardware store. There was no ID, needed or nothing like this. You walked in and this was okay. So the idea that like he's selling this as like, well, you back in the day you couldn't have anything you want is utter bullshit. Yes, you could.
It's a complete lie.
lie.
I don't give Biden much faith for anything or much credit or faith. And assuming that he is all cognizantly together, he knows he's lying. I know he knows this stuff because anybody who serves in government hears this from somebody at some point in time. The whole goal is to twist the way you talk about it to make those people that are not educated in this. And I'm not trying to say people that aren't educated in this aren't stupid. People are busy. It's certain lifestyles. I grew up with guns. I'm very passionate about this. I know about it. There's a lot of people that are in their 30s that have never even seen a real firearm in their entire life. And they hear this stuff and they think, well, the president's saying it, it must be true.
Right.
And it's really scary because the very aspect of a firearm is to be able to defend yourself. What was it? It was God made men. Samuel Colt made all men equal.
All men equal, yeah.
And it's true because what a firearm allows my wife to be on level ground
with a linebacker.
With a linebacker from the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah. And she could win.
Probably would.
Probably will, yeah.
And that's what a firearm does. And there's no other tool on the planet that can do such a thing. And we don't live in a utopian society. The United States is this very fragile eggshell place that is so much safer and so much more civilized than the rest of the world.
Because of that firearm, yeah.
And it's culture, but the firearm is a big part of that culture and the way we feel safe. And there's reasons that states like Montana that have firearms in every household have very few B&Es.
Right, because you get your ass blown away by a kid.
There are still robberies in Montana, but most of the time they happen in unoccupied house. They go rob vacation homes. They don't want to go
break into your car.
They don't want to break into somebody's house because they know that the odds are better than not that somebody's in there with at least a 12-gauge shotgun. The idea that it's this principle that the guns are the problem, right? And specific kinds of guns. And there's this standard, this international standard, if you will. We always get compared to, the United Kingdom has less gun violence than us, or Australia has less gun violence than us. While these numbers are true because the guns are far more restricted, the United Kingdom does have much less gun violence than we do, but they don't have less violence. They have more.
They have more violence, yeah.
They have more robberies. They have more incidences of people getting hurt. And when you look at the numbers, in the United States specifically, of what your odds are of being a victim of a violent crime, and when I say violent, I mean violent. Not like, okay, somebody pickpocketed you or somebody stole shit out of your truck or robbed your house or not. I mean, basically you were physically assaulted and robbed, which the line between being hurt and killed is very small in those incidences. Your likelihood of having that happen to you versus being shot by, and I'm not even talking killed by a gun, I'm talking shot by a gun. And it varies quite a wide range, So we'll go with the conservative side. You are 50 times more likely to be a victim of a violent crime than you are to be shot by a gun.
Right. Yeah, and the FBI keeps all those stats, and we'll get into that here in a minute. But you can go to the FBI website and
the
see
idea
all
that
this.
the idea, and they sell this trope as an idea that if we get rid of guns, violence will go down, and that's why they use the gun violence statistic, because it looks so disproportionate. Gun violence in the United States is huge. Gun violence in the United Kingdom isn't. You know what the difference is? They have good gun laws. No. That's not that. That is a complete farce. And in this speech, Biden says that there's this epidemic of gun violence in this country. Well, first off, gun violence has been going down pretty steadily for the last 20 years.
It's an epidemic in a crisis. So he'll use the word crisis to describe this, but not what's happening at the border.
And we're an international embarrassment.
Fuck Europe.
Who cares? Who cares? Who are we an international embarrassment to? China, the country that's locking up Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps to this day.
Right now, as we speak, right now. You can see them on the Google Earth. You can see where they are.
Yeah. Or and I don't want to get into a fight with other foreign countries, because I know there's a lot of you folks out there that are listening to us from other countries, but it's a different world, and what you guys have for gun laws doesn't work here in the United States.
Well, across the board, again, freedom of speech, all that. You don't have what we have here in the United States. Period.
So, quite frankly, most Americans that actually care about their freedoms and rights don't give two fucks what the rest of the world thinks about us. If we cared about what the world thought about us, there's a lot of shit we wouldn't have done in the last 200 years. And it's why the United States is a leading country in every aspect.
That's why we're exceptional. The word exceptional, American exceptionalism, is a thing, and that's true. Even on a technological level right now, the Chinese are thumping their chest that they found water or whatever in the bottom of a crater or
on the moon.
And we're flying a helicopter around the fucking planet Mars. You couldn't be literally light years ahead of them on what they have, just on a technological level. Take that, ISS. But like the Russians. But it's absolutely true. And he actually boasts in his speech. I have it down here at 9 minutes 52 seconds. He goes around. He talks about, I'm going to go around Congress. You want to know why you're going around Congress? Because half the Democrats, if not more, would say no to voting and enacting these laws. That's why you had to do it with an executive order. But he's talking about red flag laws. He's talking about,
which, aside from the fact of how incredibly unconstitutional they are incredibly dangerous.
Oh yeah. What for you guys who don't understand what a red flag law is, and basically you can petition a court to have somebody who you deem to be unsafe or unfit to have their guns taken away.
And depending on the state, these courts make the decision without you even knowing about it.
Right. So you
have no right to defend yourself.
None. And think about it in terms like this. He invokes the Violence Against Women Act that he helped draft as a senator. You're talking about an ex-husband being able to come up and be like, you know what, my wife's a complete psycho bitch, and yeah, you know what, she has kids, and she has the kids, and she's a threat to herself and the kids, and they can have that female can have her guns taken away while you march in there and shoot her.
And now she's defenseless.
She's defenseless, right? Or you've just opened her up for the criminal down the street to break into her house and do Lord knows terrible things to her. You know what I mean? Because you've taken away her right to
with no due process.
No,
and it depends on the state. And this is why it's funny that Joe Biden brings up the red flag laws like this is some big thing, because the states that are going to pass red flag laws have already done it. And the states that haven't are never going to. I don't want to say never, because governments can change. But at this point in time, if they ain't passed it, they ain't going to pass it. It's either because the state legislature won't do it or the governor won't sign it.
But the people, have said no.
And overwhelmingly so, and rightfully so.
Right.
This gets into really sketchy constitutional territory. And it's just more efforts to go around Congress with executive actions to do things. And that's the funny thing about this is anything done in executive action vanishes 4 years from now.
Oh, yeah.
Or sooner, depending on when, fucking Biden strokes out and, Kamala Harris takes over.
Kamala takes over, yeah.
4 years from now, new election, new president, probably going to be a Republican. I'll say it right now.
Oh, yeah. If this trend doesn't
change,
yeah, absolutely will be Republican. And in 2 years, he's going to be a feckless president because he's going to lose the House, both. He's going to lose it all.
Well, the really scary, they haven't talked about it, but he talked about and I'm not going to get in, maybe this is for another episode, but he talked about the ATF, the guy he appointed to lead the ATF is
he's terrible.
Zealot. There's only one word for it. He's a zealot. This guy is out of his mind. Crazy.
Yeah, he thumped his chest on what they did to not Columbine.
He was part of the in Waco,
Branch
Texas.
Davidians. Yeah, Waco.
That killed people.
Yeah.
And then tried to blame. He's retweeted conspiracy theories about them shooting down helicopters, which didn't happen.
No, he set them on fire. And
Mind you, they killed 12 children and 3 pregnant women. Was it 1 or 3? They killed a bunch of children for no reason. Absolutely no reason.
Set the place on fire. They could have just waited them out. They didn't have to do that.
This is the kind of stuff that's coming our way. And the more specific things that they're going after here, the 2 big things that he's going to do executive action on, because these are the things he thinks he can do through the ATF that doesn't require congressional law because of the way this, and we've talked about it in the past, the bureaucracy and laws being made by people that are not elected. This is it right here. So they use the scary term ghost guns. Ooh. Leave it to the Democrats to make up a fucking word that gets used a lot now, and it's sad because
they don't believe in religion.
It gets used, and I even had to reprimand John about using the term ghost guns.
Well, it's an 80% lower is what it is.
And what a ghost gun is essentially is a gun that's not registered with the government, right? So the ATF requires gun manufacturers. There's our specific parts on a gun that has a serial number, right? So on an AR, for example, and if you're watching on YouTube, I have it right here in front of me. On an AR-15, M4, any kind of platform like this, the lower, this piece here, which if you look at the firearm, I have it disassembled partially. This is called the lower. Now, it doesn't come with the pistol grip. It doesn't come with the stock or the buffer tube or any of this trigger assembly inside, any of this stuff.
It's just the black part.
Any of the parts on this. This is the lower. This is the part that has a serial number. Mine's right here. This is the serialized part of the weapon. The rest of the weapon is nothing. It's just, these are considered accessories or extra parts, if you will.
Right.
This is the registered part of the firearm. At some point, when this thing is manufactured, it goes from being a block of metal to a actually regulated piece of material. And that line of when it crosses that line has to be decided. It's a legal thing, right? At what point do we tell companies that they have to serialize this?
Right.
And that point is at 80%. When this piece, this lower, is 80% complete, that is what the ATF says. And there's a bunch of rules behind that. We won't get into them, but it's 80%. That's why you will hear the term 80% lowers.
But you can go to the ATF and type in 80% lower, and it'll tell you exactly what the difference. I'm looking at it right now. There's pictures of it. It shows you what the differences are.
The different parts and what's part of it. And at the end of the day, what you can do is you can order an 80% lower from, there's dozens of companies around the country that make them in different materials, aluminum, steel, all sorts of stuff. And
but an 80% lower is nothing but a block of metal. That's
so
it.
You can order all these parts on the internet, and with a little bit of Joe Biden says within 30 minutes assemble a gun. No, it's not 30 minutes. Maybe if you're a weaponsmith that has done hundreds of these, you might be able to slap it together that fast if you have all the parts in front of you. But the idea is you can build your own firearm. Now, as long as that firearm is for you, it doesn't have to be serialized. That is the way the law is written. Now, there's challenges with that because now you can't sell it. You can't transfer it.
Right.
I.e., you can't. There's challenges with giving it, like if you die and how that gets transferred to other people, as well as getting it repaired. Most gunsmiths won't touch a non-serialized weapon with a 10-foot pole.
No, I was talking to one this weekend, and he said the exact same thing. Nope.
And so the idea is that these ghost guns, all of a sudden, they're not registered by the government, right? There's no serial number. There's no way to track it, and it's there.
It's easy, though, to get one. It takes, 6-7 months to go through the process. I did it with my silencer. To manufacture, like you go to the ATF and you say,
to go through the process.
Here's the serial number, and they make you write it down, and you follow the rules. So if you were to pass on or whatever, the kids could do it.
The funny thing is the biggest piece right now for these 80% lowers is AR-15s, right? There's other ways you can do these supposed ghost guns, especially with the 3D printing technology and everything now. But the idea that these are part of the bigger crime problem, if you will, or gun violence in the United States isn't true. These are not used. They are found by criminals, but what does a criminal do when they find a gun? A lot of the times they file the serial number. Yeah. And so I don't think weapons should be serialized, period. They don't need to be. They don't serve a purpose. When weapons were serialized, you did not see a decrease in weapons being used by criminals because they don't give a shit about the serial number.
No,
they don't. The serial number is meant for law-abiding citizens. It's another rule for us to follow when we're law-abiding citizens. So why are we making rules for us to follow to begin with?
Right. It's the criminals who are not going to follow them anyway.
Now, I'm not going to go buy an 80% lower because I'm too lazy and I don't like to put them together, and it's a pain in the ass, and there's a lot of shit that can go wrong. And when it comes to going wrong, I don't want a firearm that has a controlled explosion right next to my face. I don't want anything going wrong.
With you on the drill press. Yeah, I think it's good. Put some WD on it.
But the idea that people want to do this, I think, is fine. Changing this doesn't change anything, especially with mass shootings. The guy that shot up Las Vegas didn't have unserialized weapons. He had a lot of serialized weapons. So even the serial number being serialized doesn't prevent crime. Anything. The second one of these that he's going after is what's called pistol braces. Now, in the 1936 National Firearms Act, they passed a law, again, something that I think is completely unconstitutional, unnecessary, and serves no purpose. It's what makes things like suppressors illegal, machine guns illegal.
And the length of your barrel.
Legit machine guns, like actual, military machine guns. Right. No, it doesn't make them illegal. I'm sorry. That was done in 86. But it makes them harder to get. It makes so you can't have a sawed-off shotgun and what is called an SBR, or a short-barreled rifle. Anything less than 6. There's more to it, but basically a 16-inch barrel on an M4. Anything shorter than that is considered an SBR. If you have a barrel less than 16 inches on an AR, specific platform here, it's called an AR pistol now, if it doesn't have a stock.
Right.
So what people did for a long time is they built these AR pistols with just a buffer tube and some padding on it so that it was covered. And I mean, you couldn't actually shoulder the thing because it would be in here like an Uzi or something. And
you wouldn't want to shoulder.
It's the same idea that you couldn't shoulder if you can buy shoulder braces for pistols. You're not allowed to do that.
Right. That makes them an SBR, which is illegal.
Well, it means you have to have a tax stamp.
Right.
Now, it's not illegal.
Yeah, you can go through the process. Yeah, and it takes 8 months or whatever.
Which is an infringement on our constitutional rights, but again, another story.
But you can
what they're going to
change.
Do it right. What they did is, at some point, some people were smart. They got together. They went talk to the ATF and said, hey, are these pistol braces? This was something used by competition shooters and things like that to hold a pistol up. Is this considered a stock?
And they said no.
And that is how everybody's been operating for many, many, many years, that this thing is not considered a stock. So now you can, instead of having to pay $200 and wait anywhere from 6 to 9 months for your clearance to go through, you can go buy a AR pistol with a pistol brace.
To enact your constitutionally given rights to begin with.
Now, what Biden wants to do is reclassify these pistol braces as stocks, which means that anybody who owns one, which the numbers, nobody really knows, because the number is between 10 and 40 million. 10 and 40 million.
Yeah, he's multiplying that by 200 and thinking payday is what he's thinking.
People, or firearms out there now, if you have them, you are now a felon because you have a NFA item without a tax stamp.
Right.
Now, mind you, this is what this is called, is a tax stamp. A tax stamp. They are limiting your rights with a tax stamp.
Imagine that.
Does that sound like it's something intended to make people safer or just generate revenue?
Right. And again, we talked about this earlier, where I think they've been setting the table, so to speak. They've been setting this up for the last year or so, because he specifically talks about how this is so obnoxious. He talks about how there's been a spike in the last year in homicides, particularly amongst black and brown communities. So then he's talking about how in many cases the police are not funded properly. Imagine that, AOC. But he walks us through this whole step. Like, he's been taking this for the last year. He's noticed that we've defunded the cops in many of these states that have the highest murder rates here, and we'll go through this in a minute. And then he makes it a racial thing. Hey, this is impacting the blacks and the browns worse.
Emotion.
Well, emotion. Well, no shit, dumbass. You defunded the cops that are needed in that portion of town even more so. Even the people there want that. Outside of the 5 that you interviewed. But when you go walk down the street and you ask them, hey, do we want the cops there? Overwhelmingly, especially like in Harlem, places like this, they go, yes, we want more.
And when you look at what's going on right now, the spike in violence across the country is completely centered in the cities that have defunded and dismantled their police departments. Right. To the point now they're panicking.
Yeah, and AOC was like, we don't, and she actually tweeted this, we don't need, when defund the police, defund means defund. It doesn't mean play budget tricks. And those are her words. She wants this to be done, and she's one of the loudest voices in Congress right now, for defund the cops. And then in the same breath, they go, fuck, we just don't have the money.
So not only are they creating the problem, They are proposing a solution that doesn't solve the problem that they created.
But it takes away your right.
So even if there isn't some big scheme here or big plan, at the end of the day, you have idiots making laws for nothing other than a radical agenda.
Yep. And then the only time they care about money right now is you can save up to $280 billion. Let me repeat that. $280 billion. Like, you don't give a crap about the budget anywhere else. Here, now you're going to make this about money?
They're talking about $10 trillion infrastructure plans.
And you're like $280 billion
$280 billion.
For shootings and hospitalizations and lost production. You don't give a crap about production. You've shut down oil pipelines. You shut down border construction jobs. You don't give a crap about any of this except when it's here. The only time you give a shit about it is when it's here. The only time you care about identity is when it has to do with a firearm, but you don't care about when someone's voting or who's coming across the border. You cite terrorists and bad people, getting criminals and terrorists getting a hold of firearms when you open up the border and you don't give a damn about how many of those people are coming into our country. So the hypocrisy here is tremendous, Well,
and it boils back to the idea that the solutions that they're providing, that they're proposing, let's say, the solutions that they're proposing if you go back and look at any recent mass shooting, this is a big push, right? Mass shootings, we got to get mass shootings under control, right? They weren't, these laws, none of these laws would have prevented them. There was I think there was one mass shooting that involved somebody getting a gun. It was a South Carolina. So he called it the South Carolina loophole, right? It's not a fucking loophole. Basically, the law states that if you go and buy a gun and the FBI
went in and shot up a bunch of
it went into the church and shot up. Yeah. If you go into a gun store, you buy a gun, you have to do an FBI background check. If that FBI background check takes more than 3 days, you are considered passed. They have to sell you the gun. Well, the store doesn't have to sell you the gun, but you don't have to pass the gun check. And that's what happened with this Charleston shooting, right? He went in, took more than 3 days, he got the gun, they used the gun to shoot up a church. Right. Horrible thing. So what they're proposing now, and I could agree. I'm kind of on the fence on this. They want to change that to 7 days. Okay, fine. 7 days. If the background check doesn't come back within 7 days, then you can go buy the gun. The idea of this threshold exists so that the government, which is full of a bunch of shit-headed bureaucrats, can't go, oh, we lost your paperwork, and it takes 6 months, and then you can't...
And then they lose it again, and then you get lost in the system, and you have to refile.
There's a threshold where they have to meet that.
Right.
If they don't meet that, you are allowed to exercise your rights.
Right. And, he lied there. And he lies the whole premise, the whole gun show loop. They're talking about he says the words, I can walk into a gun show and I can buy any kind of firearm I want without a background check, which is a categorical lie. I've bought firearms.
When you go to a gun show,
you sit right there and you're not allowed to touch the damn firearm until your background check. The guy disappears. He makes a phone call, checks, comes back, and then once that process is completed, you then take home your firearm.
First off, when you go to a gun show, more than half of the shit there isn't even guns.
Yeah, true. But
second, when you go there, about, I don't know, maybe 1 in 10 booths is somebody who's a private seller. And those are the only people that are allowed to sell firearms without a background check. They aren't an FFL. Anybody inside that gun shop that is an FFL does a background check.
All of mine have.
And I have even run into several private citizens
who make you do it anyway.
They worked out a deal with one of the local outfits or a pawn shop, and they do a background check before they sell the weapon, even though the law doesn't require it, because they don't want to be the one that sold a gun to a mass murderer.
Psycho, right?
But there is still the ability to buy firearms, and if I know John really well, right, I should be able to sell John a gun without a background check. There should be no problem to that.
But to cover your backside.
Well, I mean, with you and I know, but the law also states that you can't sell a firearm if you know somebody is not legally allowed to own one. Right. So if you're a felon,
I'm a felon,
and I sell you a gun, I am breaking the law.
Right.
That's already exists. It is already against the law to sell the gun to somebody that you knowingly know
can't have it because they're a felon, right?
And the problem is...
Same thing with online sales. So online, I can buy any gun I want. No, I have purchased a gun on GunBroker.
Please find me a gun you can buy online without a background check.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Because the gun, in order for the gun to be shipped, It has to go to
Through an FFL,
It has to go to an FFL. So it could be pawn shops. I've gotten a couple of guns from estate auctions, and they get delivered to a pawn shop. I go to the pawn shop. They do the background check,
and
then
you
it gives me the firearm. Right. You know, gun shops. You can do these at your local gun shop. Same deal. Anywhere that's an FFL, so he's going to this transfer.
Close that loophole, which doesn't exist.
There is no loophole.
Right. He's lying through his teeth when he says that. You know. And then here's the creme de la creme, guys. When he talks about going after the immunity of the gun manufacturers, what he's doing here is effectively going to put them out of business. He's going to take control, and they are not going to be able to produce because they will get sued into oblivion.
I forget how he said it, but if he could have one wish, and the
Lord would come down, and this would be it. He would go after the.
And the reason he would go after this is because it would put every gun manufacturer out of business.
Yep.
Allowing somebody to sue a gun manufacturer because the thing they made was used in a crime. Now, mind you, you can still sue a gun man if they do something faulty or negligent. Because you can sue them.
He lied there. He goes, right now, gun manufacturers cannot be sued. That's a lie. Yes, you can sue them if you have if you squeeze a trigger on a brand new firearm and that barrel explodes and it was faulty from the manufacturer, you absolutely can go to them and sue them. But what he's talking about is, like you're saying, is that this thing was used in a robbery. The robbery went south, and they shot the clerk, killed the clerk. Now, bang,
the clerk's family can sue the Smith and Wesson.
Right.
And that's like saying that you could sue Ford Motor Company because some dude got in a DUI and killed your kid. Right. Now you can go sue Ford because they made a car that made it capable for somebody being a DUI.
Right. So what he's talking about there is gigantic. Oh, and here's another irony, right? He wants to end their protections, but you can't go after Twitter, you can't go after Facebook or any of these other places, Google YouTube, or anything else when they perpetuate lies. So he only gives a crap about ending their immunity when it suits him. And again, this is a categorical. I don't want to say it's a lie that you can't. It is a lie that you cannot sue a gun manufacturer because you can't.
He says he doesn't qualify. He says you can't shoot it, and nobody else has the same immunities. And he tries to compare it to cigarettes. He tries to compare it to cigarettes about
tobacco.
Your cigarettes knowingly were making things that could hurt people, and it's like, wait, it hurts my head. It just hurts because you can't. It's so illogical and so fucking dumb that you can't even make an argument against it because it's like. Somebody's trying to tell you the sky's purple, and you're looking at it and it's blue, and you're like, no, it's not. And they're like, yes, it is. It's purple.
Your eyes are
racist.
Yeah, you're a racist.
One of the things they try to prop up, and again, more lies, just straight up lies, right? I wonder if the Washington Post is going to track the lies like they did the Trump lies. He's 35,000 lies in 4 years or whatever the hell it was. I mean, he had about fucking 30 in 10 minutes with this speech. Right. But they talk about the assault weapon ban of the federal assault weapon ban, and it was from 94 to 2004, and how he quotes all these statistics, right? He says, it brought down mass shootings. All right, now on a technical level, you can say that year over year there were less mass shootings during the assault weapons ban than after the assault weapons ban, but the number is insignificant. The numbers are so small they are not statistically significant. You're talking about an average of 19 and an average of 21. The FBI itself said that there was no meaningful impact from assault weapon ban because assault weapons are not used in a majority of the crimes. When you go look at assault weapons, these are generally your big scary black rifles, right? Your AR-15s. And the only thing that makes it that is cosmetics. And banning these things, like let's say you could just snap your fingers and assault weapons vanished overnight, right? More people die every year from hands and feet than rifles.
Yep, and that's straight
Now remember this.
FBI's website.
Rifles. This isn't assault rifles.
No, just all rifles.
All rifles. Right. So it doesn't matter if it's a bolt action. It could be a single load rifle. The number is so small, the FBI doesn't even track it.
California, the strictest gun laws. To buy ammunition, you have to have an ID. Imagine that. But to cast a vote for the president, you don't. You have 537 hands and feet stabbing weapons and then other than firearm weapons. Okay, 537. This is 2019 because we didn't have 2020's data yet. Only 34 In the whole state of California, what is it,
In the
49
year
million?
of 2019.
In 2019, 34 used rifles. The rest of them used handguns or like you said, like
Shotguns.
stabbing weapons.
Handguns and shotguns.
Yeah, handguns and shotguns, right.
The majority of gun crimes committed in the United States are committed with handguns.
Yep.
And they're not even mentioned.
And they're not mentioned, right. Because that would put half their
because as soon as they try to go after
security
handguns,
staff.
well, no, but as soon as they go after handguns, they know they can't win the argument.
Yeah.
This is the slippery slope argument is kind of getting to a bad argument to make anymore, but this is their incremental steps. They know that if they go after, they chip away, they can get to it. And they know that if they go too big too soon, they can't get it. Right. Well, they know that if they go after assault weapons, in their words, AR-15s and sporting rifles.
Nobody needs 100 bullets. Why would you need 100 bullets?
I don't know.
Because they don't make them that have 101.
Ask anybody who's had to defend their home from a riot.
Yeah. Oh, imagine, yeah, then they go after and take those guns away. Yeah. Not the rioters' guns. Remember that? The lady and the guy who couldn't handle a firearm, they need to go to training. But I'll say that.
Hey, they ran off the crowd.
But they ran off the crowd. They looked mean, and that was the purpose. They didn't want to go out there. And
they looked ridiculous, but even ridiculous people holding a firearm, nobody wants to be
Nobody wants to be near it, right. I've never seen a range clear out faster than when one person there is anticipating the recoil so badly that they're flagging. I've seen it, when someone's unsafe.
Flagging somebody behind them.
Yeah, so I've seen the ranges clear out like that when someone's there unsafe. But I digress. But yeah, so guys, at the end of the day, go back and listen to his speech and type in live so you can get it where it's not all cut out.
Yeah. So if you type in Joe Biden executive order, gun speech, whatever, it'll come up. But make sure you put that live in there because then you don't get all the silly banners and all the info quotes of how amazing he is and how many all the bullshit stats from the liberal. You'll get the live feed even if you watch it on CNBC or any of even the liberal things. If you do the live. All of them played it on YouTube. You can watch it yourself. I suggest having something to bite down on or a pillow to yell into because you're going to be pretty upset when you listen to it. But
God, when he says that no amendment to the Constitution is absolute, I've never wanted to kick
the ground shaking effect that has at the end of the day on how people view what the government is,
right,
and how it affects your life is this idea that the government gets to decide what your rights are, what you're allowed to do,
right,
that your inalienable rights, and that's what they are. They're inalienable rights.
Yeah, endowed by the Creator.
Not absolute.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
And in America, that's all we have. This is what makes America so damn great is the fact that we have these rights, and it doesn't matter if you immigrated to this country yesterday or you're a 10th generation American. You have the same fucking rights as everybody else. And that's why America is the most fairest country in the world and why we are better than everybody else. Crowder had like a freedom of speech, change my mind type thing where he sits around the table and he's like, change my mind. And this one gal, he goes, Europe doesn't have freedom of speech. And this gal was from Germany. And I'll never forget this. She goes in, she's like, yes, they do. They have it in Germany. I was there. And he's like, no, you don't. He's like, can you say Heil Hitler in Germany? And she's like, well, where do you draw the line? And I'll never forget this. He goes, there is no line. You don't draw it. I cringe when I hear those words, but that doesn't. You should have the right to say them.
Once you agree to draw a line, you've already lost.
Yeah,
the argument.
And they keep moving it. Same thing here with the firearms. Yeah, I don't want my neighbor next door building a 500-pound bomb or what I mean, like in his garage because it can affect me or my kids. But the idea that I can't have a pistol grip or whatever, and that's going to solve problems, and you're keeping Americans safe.
A bayonet stud.
Yeah, So anyway. Guys, go listen to it.
Or a collapsible stock. This here makes a gun
totally more lethal. Yeah. So guys, go listen to this and do it and go check. Go to the FBI's website. You can literally type in the words 80% lower in their search bar on their website. And it'll pop up exactly what it is, and what its definition is, etc. So do your own homework. We'll put a couple of links in the description here. To help you out. But
and just keep in mind that this speech was so bad that even the extraordinarily liberal Washington Post, who is run by Jeff Bezos, basically called Biden out for lying repetitively. Like they did their best to kind of it isn't actually true, but there's a chance, and it's not good. Totally false. Instead, we're giving it one Pinocchio instead of four Pinocchios, and you're just. That's how bad this was. That it was so far afield of what reality is that even the most ardent liberal defenders of idiocy couldn't defend this.
Right. At the end of the day, he wants to skirt Congress because he knows he can't get it through like legitimately, and he is lying to your face with every breath he takes. If you don't think that's true, go back and take a look at it, guys, and don't take our word for it. Do your own homework.
And more's coming, guys. More's coming. I talked about this several months ago about them coming for your guns, and this isn't it. They've openly said they have more they want to do, and they will do what they can without Congress.
Oh yeah.
So,
well, I think we probably end it there. Huh?
Yep.
All right, guys. As always, we had a good time doing this. I hated the speech when I listened to it. It kind of made me mad. It was funny to watch Tyler's watch my expression on my face, and just watch my head go when I was hearing it. But like and subscribe, guys. If you like what we're doing, we want to hear it. If you think we can improve, let us know. Every week we're trying to get better. So again, like and subscribe, comment away, and as always, Semper Fi. Good night.
Good night.